Hello, everyone. With us in today's interview is really famous man in metal circles, the drummer of several cult bands in the thrash metal genre, Chris Kontos.
Hey everybody, how you doing?
Hey, great. So I'll ask him 10 questions, each of which will be related to him and his musical career, and only one will be directly related to our channel's past. But more of that later. Without
Okay,
future interruption, let's dive into the hearts of darkness where is born true chaos.
nice. Let's go.
Okay, how did you feel when you returned to Shark Bite Studios with Rob, Jared, and Logan Mather as part of the 25-year Burn My Eyes tour? Were there moments when you caught yourself thinking, "Oh God, it's been quarter century"?
Yeah, yeah. It was definitely cathartic. We had a lot of problems in the past that kind of haunted us, and to be able to be older and wiser, and kind of get past all of that. Rob and I had been hanging out at shows and kind of like mending the wounds, and it was good. And then they called me and said, hey, we're going to do a 25th anniversary, and I was like, yes, let's go. And yeah, it was cool. We did our first couple of rehearsals, and Rob was like, wow, you've really been preparing, and you're playing really well these songs and everything. And I said, well, I haven't played any of these songs since '95. And he was like, what? And I said, yeah, I haven't played them since. And he was like what? It's such a deeply rooted moment for me in my career with that record, and really my legacy, really. So to be able to be playing them again was really cool with those guys. Unfortunately, Adam Deuce wasn't involved, but jamming with Rob and Logan, and I just love Jared. Jared is super, super nice and cool guy, and phenomenal bass player. So yeah, it was a bit of a brain fuck for sure.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Actually, I don't know. I was just a fan of this band. Like, wow, Machine Head. That's so cool. That's so big band. And now I'm on an interview with the guy who played with them. So it's like kind of crazy, you know.
Well,
I'm a small girl from a small country.
no, see, the way I look at everything in the metal community and music itself is that mostly we're all fans of the music. And I happen to play in bands, but I'm a super fan. I collect drumsticks, guitar picks, set lists, drum heads. I want to meet the guys in girls in the bands and tell them how much I really have been healed, and how much joy they bring me. So we're all the same. It's just some of us play and some of us watch, or you do what you do, which is very important for the culture.
Oh,
So
thank you.
you're not
Thank you so
just,
much.
yeah, we're all. I like to look at all of us as bonded with this culture. So nobody's higher than anybody in my eyes.
Oh, okay. That's cool that you're thinking like that. Because personally, for me, I just thought that all of these, I don't know, great big bands, so selfish or maybe so, I don't know. They are just rich and popular, and so we are the simple fans. It's like nothing to them. So it's great that you're thinking that way. You mentioned that you grew up in a musical family and started with punk and hardcore scene. So how
Yeah.
exactly did this backflow affect your unique style of playing drums in a metal context?
Yeah, so I grew up on what people would call classic rock, and my dad was, yeah, producer, songwriter, arranger. He discovered a lot of people in the '60s and '70s, and so I was always in the studio and seeing that process, and then hearing a lot of the things that happen in the music industry. But then I started to find my own music, which was pretty much like a little bit heavier, Led Zeppelin, into Black Sabbath and Blue Cheer, and then Alice Cooper, and then Kiss. And so I started to really get into that, and which kind of transcends into more traditional heavy metal. But with the punk thing, and then I still loved all other kinds of music, classical music, jazz, funk, soul, R&B. So when I was playing so many different styles as a young kid, with my headphones on in the garage, just trying to learn the full scope of drumming, um, and the importance of a rhythm section with a bass player, that connection. So it was in my neighborhood. I had my friends, and then they had like some older brothers or older sisters, and that's when punk was starting to really happen. 77, 78, 79 into 80. I started to hear their music, and I was like, wow, this is really drawing me in. The political content to the lyrics, the kind of singing about more realistic experiences in life on a day-to-day level. Um, and I got sucked into the punk rock, and that really changed me, because I started to seek out those shows and those people and that culture. And I found a lot of people who were using music as medicine,
Hmm.
to heal them and protect them, and also finding a culture of like-minded people, um, was very inviting to me. And yeah, it just kind of took my life over with that. Started playing pretty early. I mean, I was playing in my first band at like 15, 16 years old. And by the time I was 17, I was in Attitude Adjustment, and we did our first record. So yeah, it just
Yeah.
and then I brought a lot of what I had in my past to that. So there was, a lot of influence that was being shown that maybe people wouldn't recognize. But like, sometimes I'm playing hardcore and I'm thinking of Led Zeppelin or Deep Purple, but just playing it faster, but the structure in my mind is like, oh, that's kind of like that Deep Purple part, just played a lot faster. So yeah.
I guess it's just how thrash metal works. So you just play punk rock music and do it faster.
Yeah, yeah, exactly, yeah.
Okay, so just about you start playing in your 15, so it's really cool because I'm 19 now, and I'm started to get involved into a subculture of metalheads only
Yeah.
in my 16. So yeah, you're cooler than me, I guess.
No,
That way.
no.
Okay, but the next question number 3. Um, it's our traditional question about band Mayhem, because my channel used to be this band's page blog. So, how do you view their reality in the 19th and now? What you can say about that band, about their members, and else, etc.
Well, I don't know. I mean, I like black metal, and I like that it's coming from a place where people were kind of removed, and kind of stuck in a place that wasn't getting a lot of exposure to music as much as it does now. Um, I have some kind of um, strong feelings about some of the homophobia and the kind of nationalist kind of vibes. The church burning and stuff. I understand, like, culturally, the Lutherans did a lot of damage to that culture and stuff. So the backlash, but um, I just find it sometimes to be, like I said, a little nationalist kind of mentality. I've met a lot of people in black metal bands, and like the guys in Dark Throne and stuff, and I get along with them. And some of the other ones I don't get along with, because they're a little hard and standoffish. Um, it's a little closed-minded for me, sometimes with the members of the bands. But yeah, I don't have any like it's like not for me. I don't listen to it all the time, but I can respect what Mayhem did on that level of being a shock value and stuff like that. Um, but I don't have like strong, deep knowledge of the genre itself.
Mhm.
Um, so I can't speak like deeply on it. I do love the fact that the textures of the music are kind of rooted in um, like folk. There's like folk music chords on the guitars, and some of the guitar structure and the lo-fi production sometimes is very raw, and I kind of think that's cool because you're getting what the band actually sounds like as opposed to a lot of production tricks and stuff like that. It's very from the heart and from the base roots of what a band sounds like, and then recording that. You know, yeah. There's just it's a complicated
Okay,
genre.
I get it. So, but do you maybe support the thing that you should separate art from the artists? So maybe about Mayhem, when we speak about them, we first speak about their music, and secondly about their church burnings and etc. They did in early 19th. Do you support that?
Yeah. Some it's hard for me sometimes to separate like the person from the music because it's their platform, their music to reach the world. And if they're a fucking Nazi, then I'm not okay with them having a platform, you know. And
Oh,
if they abuse women or they're homophobic or they have this platform that stands aside, I don't separate that. I mean, you know, if somebody's just mean or just an asshole, but if we're talking about racism, misogyny, uh, you know, nationalism, neo-Nazi, um, you know, abusive mentality, then I kind of have to say that's what you do. And you know, music is from the heart and from the soul and from the mind. So if you're casting that music out from that mindset, I don't really separate it.
yeah,
Um,
it's true. I understand you completely well, and so I'm sharing this. You played in such different bands as Testament, Exodus, Death Angel, and Verbal Abuse. So, what do these projects have in common for your personal? And in which band did you feel the greatest creative freedom?
um, so you know, when I came into like, let's just say Death Angel, Exodus, Testament, I was really coming into their vision and playing. You know, I didn't write music with those bands, so I was really kind of doing what they have already done and just you know supporting their legacy. So I can't say that there was a lot of creativity going on. They wanted me to do my thing. You know, they didn't want me to just be a copy. You know, but um, so I was able to do things that are my style and change things, not the total structure, but just play it the way I would feel comfortable playing it. So that would be that. Now with verbal abuse, I wrote a lot of music with verbal abuse, so um, that was a great time writing with them and also doing their past music because you know I was a late member. Attitude Adjustment for me was it was my band. You know, I started the band, so I wrote a lot of that music with the guitar player and bass player.
Mhm.
Um, Machine Head, I had a lot of creative interaction with Rob, building those songs and structuring the drum beats and stuff like that. So they've all had something different creatively on different levels. So it's hard for me to pick just one. The New Forbidden, uh, I've had a lot of writing creativity with that. So yeah, I try to at least, even if I'm playing the songs from the past, I try to approach them um, with an open mind. To, of course, you have to play the parts, but there's things you can do stylistically that make yourself stand out.
Oh, okay, I understand. But just for me, um, you know, but I'm I just tried to announce our interview as the greatest one in my career. So, in every post, I said that you are the former drummer of Machine Head and etc. And for you personally, when you speak that you are a drummer of some kind of band, which band is you name firstly? So,
Machine Head, yeah. It would be Machine Head.
you most related to that band, you think?
Yeah, yeah, because it brought out there was hardcore and punk rock that I was able to put in there, and, yeah, that's the legacy, and that was the band that took me to my highest point in life, and so, yeah, yeah, that
Yeah,
would be Machine
okay,
Head.
I understand. So, your band Forbidden recently opened for Death Angel in San Francisco, a
Yeah.
band you played in back 1991. What was it like watching from the outside, looking in on a band you once played in? How did your first live shows with Forbidden go?
As far as Death Angel, see, there's something special about the Bay Area scene. So many of us are still doing it. You know, all the bands are kind of still together, or at least they have new members, maybe, but the band is still going. And we see each other so much. I went to high school with the guys in Death Angel with Rob and Mark. Mark was my high school president. So being around each other is like trippy because we're all still doing it and we all still think like we're kids, but we're older now. So it was always cool to see Death Angel make their moves and everything. And there's always been a connection between Forbidden and Death Angel over the years. So it was a great show. It was super great show. Oh, it was cool. We were announcing that the band was back before we ever played together. Even we were announcing that the band was together, so we hadn't even rehearsed when we made the announcement that the band was back. So we were booked to play the Alcatraz Festival in Belgium, and in getting ready for that, we thought like, wow, that's going to be 28,000, 30,000 people. Maybe we should play a small show just to shake off the ice. And so we did a secret show under the name Twisted into Evil. And
Mhm.
that kind of showed the first two records in one name. And it was about 200 people at a local club here in the town I live in Richmond, Point Richmond. And we announced it with only 2 days before. So we made it just like very kind of mysterious and just said, we're playing. And we sold the place out. It was just 200 people. And it was cool because the people were really excited and we were excited. And we made some mistakes because we were so excited. We were a little loose, but it really broke the ice. And then going to play Alcatraz Fest was great because we were going to be presenting Norman for the first time. And, he was nervous because the first singer, Russ, was a fantastic singer and really beloved by the fans and did a special kind of singing. He was more Rob Halford, Judas Priest style, higher register kind of singer. So Norman is that guy. So I remember Norman said, "Hey, I'm just going to play to all the people that hate me." And I was like, "I don't think anybody's going to hate you, bro. I think you're going to do it." And he did. He came out and the crowd was accepting of us. First couple songs, we were a little tight. We were like, shit, is this going to work? And we just saw the crowd's reaction. The pit was huge and it was great. And we actually had fire. We had pyro for that show. So it just really charged us up. We were like, yeah, this is happening. So yeah, that first show, proper Forbidden in Alcatraz, I'll never forget it. It was great.
That's cool. I just hear you, and I can't wait for my first show.
What instrument do you play?
I'm a vocalist.
Oh, cool. Cool, cool.
Yeah,
Right on.
I do vocals for my little melodic death metal band called Quick Sense of Mind.
Nice, nice. Cool.
Oh,
Good luck with that.
thank you very much. You say that you have been a fan of a crossover trash. So, how do you see the development of the direction today? Are there any modern bands that you think continue this traditional worthy?
Yeah. So I just received a book from my friend who wrote a book called Tear It Down. It's the story of the birth of crossover, and I feel like when crossover happened here in the Bay Area, we had metalheads going to punk shows and punks going to metal shows, and at that time in the culture, it was not cool. There was a lot of fighting between metalheads and punk rockers, and I think in the Bay Area, it's a little bit more relaxed. It's a little bit, just a little bit more mellow. So we realized, like, what are we fighting over? Haircuts, long hair or mohawks? And it seemed silly to us because the music on both sides was great. And then the bands started to do what the other band was doing, like more strumming and just simplified kind of stuff was happening in metal. And then punk bands were doing more chunking and more musicianship, and so it just happened. But I feel like after it happened and the key bands had done it, you can only have crossover once. Crossover isn't a formula. Um, so moving past, let's just say 88, 89, I feel like crossover happened and it can't happen again. And you can't use it as a formula. You have to cross something else over.
Mm-hmm.
You have to take country music and jazz and make it something, or you have to take. Now, this did happen with hip hop and metal, um, where you have like maybe new metal where people were rapping. So that was like the next crossover for me. But bands that continue to call themselves a crossover band, for me, that doesn't work because just continuing what had already happened isn't crossing over. It's just
Yeah, I understand. So now it evolves in something newer, but it isn't crossover that was back in
right,
the 18s. So,
right.
by the way, if we go back to the black metal and speak about it in that way, maybe because now there are no church burnings and there are less
Right.
racist, less homophobia, and etc. Is it changed
Yeah.
now?
Yeah, I feel that there's been a maturity and a realization that a lot of those things that you said are not good for the culture. And so, yeah, I'm enthusiastic about that. I mean, for me being a Kiss fan and Alice Cooper fan, like I love like Dimmu Borgir and Behemoth and some of those bands that are taking it to a giant level. And some people say, oh, those bands sold out or they're just theatrical metal, not really black metal. But what I have seen is some black metal bands, and I don't know the names, but they're using like more traditional folk music or folk instruments and bringing in some more of the traditional themes of their ancestral music,
Maybe something like
but
dungeon synth because it's a subgenre of black metal.
right, right, exactly,
Yeah, okay.
exactly.
No, I've got you. So I'm thinking it in that way too. I think
Yeah,
that black metal is changing now, and it's good to the genre. So it's
yeah,
not just that it becomes music now, and it becomes poser music. No, I don't think so. Maybe
right.
someone called me poser, but I don't care. I just listen to good music, which non-racist and etc.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, so question number 8. In one of the interviews, you say that Metallica had to stop its activity because it had outlived itself. But isn't it fair that after gaining popularity, a band takes advantage of its well deserved legacy?
Yeah. Um, I think that when I did that interview, Metallica as a band was kind of bashing thrash a little bit. Lars had done a couple interviews, like kind of going like, "What can you do with it? It's already, it's limited, and it's not. There's no imagination left in thrash." And you know, I kind of felt like, dude, there are plenty of great thrash bands still with imagination and stuff. So at that point, I was kind of rejecting that and saying, well, if you're done with thrash, then don't be a thrash. Don't use your thrash history to continue. Be a new band, you know. And what they were
Mhm.
doing musically to me was different. It was more rock and roll. It was a little bit. It was softer edged, and it was a little bit more commercial. And so, with them saying that, it kind of made my hair stand up. I was a little like, dude, fuck you, you know, a little bit. So that's kind of where I was coming from. But you can't, like, when we were recording the new Forbidden, there's some parts on there that I said to Craig, you can't get here without Metallica. Like, what we're doing right here is classic, uh, that format, you know, it's that area. And he was like, it's true, you know, you can't shit on what Metallica brought to the table and the doors they opened for thrash, you know.
Yeah,
So I do have great respect for Metallica.
they are just beginners, and you need to count with them. So yeah, I understand. But the things that Lars said, it's really selfish because they are don't own a whole genre. I mean, there are really plenty of young bands that play the cool stuff. So yeah,
Yeah,
he didn't try it. So yeah, I understand you so well.
yeah.
Okay. When you look at modern drummers who call you a source of inspiration, what do you feel? And is there any advice you would like to pass on to a new generation of musicians?
Well, it's always really flattering because I hold my drum influences so closely. You know, John Bonham, Cozy Powell, Ian Pace, um, you know, Bill Ward. You know, so I value what they showed me. You know, and then you know Billy Cobham and Mitch Mitchell's. So I really value deeply what I was able to gain from them as influences. So when I get listed as an influence, it means a lot to me because money and fame, it's not what people think it is, and I think there's a little delusion there. So for me, the gold is making someone say, "Wow, I want to approach being able to do that style or play that way," and that means a lot. It's very flattering and humbling, and I have a lot of gratitude for that. If people are able to find something inspirational from my drumming, um, my advice to new bands, well, especially drummers. Um, there are current trends in drumming right now that I feel um, are kind of stripping individual style away, especially with like blast and super fast drumming. I'm hearing more people define their style with beats per minute, like 300 BPM beats, or you know, and for me, that's I don't hear a lot of style diversity in modern drumming techniques because it's all so fast and it's kind of lost the groove and lost the pocket drumming and um, so some drummer friends of mine, we kind of have this ongoing joke about, you know, whenever we put a picture of our drums up or we put a video up of our drumming, the first question we'll ask is, what's your max BPM? You know, because everybody is so concerned with like playing so absolutely fast that it's kind of ripping away individualities in people's style. So I would tell drummers to explore all the possibilities of drums and not just obsess on being fast. Because if you blast for a whole album and there's nothing else there, for me, the songs become less special.
Mhm.
If it's, oh, blast again. Okay. All right. There it is. You know?
Yeah, that's a great advice. So I have many friends who is playing guitar. They are guitarists, and the first thing people ask them is just Oh, can you play that song from Dragon Force? You know, that's fast, super
Right.
fast song, yeah. And yeah, it's kind of I don't know. Um, you are just making less volume his technique or his groove. So you just want him to play as fast as he can. It's not right. So yeah, as it's right from guitarist, so it's right from the drummer, as I guess.
Right. Well, I mean, Craig from Forbidden, his style is not super fast and shreddy. What he does is what I call lyrical solos. Like you can sing his solos. Um, and so they're very musical in that way and lyrical. And then, the other guitar player usually in Forbidden is the guy that can play sweet picks and all kinds of scales and that so it gives a two-sided approach to the solos. So, yeah, just don't, my friend and I call it don't lose your caveman.
Okay, so the last question. We move to the last one.
Okay.
Question number 10. Looking back at the past, which musical challenges or experiments are you interested in right now at this stage of your career?
Um, I'm getting more into like really old school country music.
Oh,
Um,
really?
yeah, like the real old school stuff, the what they call outlaw country. My nephew is a great singer, and he plays in metal bands, but he's also really infatuated with country music. And it was hard for him to find a band of like-minded younger people to play with. So I put together some guys, and I kind of took on the drums, and I found that it's a special thing because when you're playing country drumming, you're just setting up the vocals and the guitars. It's not a lot of tricks. It's not a lot of showboat. You just what I call find your place to do nothing. You kind of just set the beat, and it's more about the overall than like watching the drummer, then watching the guitar player, then watching the singer, and then it's there's not a lot to it, so it's very basic. So I'm really and it's very regional. Um, the techniques that country music has from state to state in our country. In Texas they do it like this, and in Georgia they do it like that, and in Kentucky they have this. So it's been fun for me to find all the regional techniques that are true to the cultures of those states and those drummers, because they're very different, very subtle, but there are very different approaches. And then I'm also trying to learn tabla, Indian hand drums.
Ah,
Um,
yeah, I get it.
fascinate me, and it's very hard to do. So I'm kind of looking forward to getting more into that.
I don't know what to say. I'm just a big fan of country myself.
Oh, cool,
I'm big
cool.
fan special of outlaw country. I call it also dark country. Like my
Yeah, yeah,
first singer is Blues Saraceno, and I like him so much. Also,
right.
Cody Jinks, I know he's a tough guy too.
Yeah,
And maybe some bands like Goodnight Texas, but they are playing like I don't know, folk music, because I heard that country it's only from America, from the state of America, and the folk music it's from the other countries, I guess.
yeah, yes, yes. It has its roots in other styles. Yeah,
Yeah.
around the world. So yeah.
It's fascinating to me that you like it too.
Yeah, yeah. Well, there's a lot of similarities to outlaw country, with like the alcohol, the drugs, the fucking, the pain, the struggle on the road, and night after night playing, and it has a lot of parallels to punk rock and even heavy metal. So it drew me in, and my
Yeah.
nephew it's really fun to play with my nephew too. So
I just found a lot of parallels with black metal back then, because I was a huge fan of band Mayhem, as I said. And when I heard that themes they are lyrics for. It's just devils, angels, God, the judgment day, and as you said,
Yeah.
alcohol, depression. So it's just like black metal lyrics.
Yeah, 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 it's true, it's true. There's a lot of similarities there.
Okay, there was all questions. I'm so thankful that you have that time with me, that you have answered all of my questions. So it was Chris Kontos with us from several bands, several thrash
Too
metal
many to
bands.
list.
Yeah, so good luck to you, I guess. Bye bye.
Thank you, bye-bye. Have a good one.